And so these are the three things I'm going to be talking about today. Not the next 5 to 10 years, but the next 10 to 20 years. Now, it's still a little bit early if you are an investor to jump into the game. Billionaires, of course, have already jumped into the game. Billionaires are leading the fray. In the space program, for example, we have people like Elon Musk, people like Jeff Bezos, people like Richard Branson, Paul Allen, billionaires bankrolling the second golden era of space travel. And then we'll talk about even beyond that, the time when quantum computers may render silicon obsolete. Think about that. Silicon Valley could become a rust belt. We're waiting for the rise of a new generation of computers. And what happens when artificial intelligence gets so powerful, it begins to displace workers? What jobs are going to survive in the AI era? And for that matter, some people say, well, maybe the robots are going to take over. And so we'll say a few things about Moore's Law, that computer power doubles every 18 months. And first of all, if you take a look at the 60s, you realize that the coming of the microchip changed everything. And what propelled the microchip? It was, believe it or not, the space program. NASA, the military, back in the 60s, demanded computers that were more powerful, tiny, miniaturized, that could fit inside a lunar capsule. So we physicists rose to the challenge. We invented integrated circuits. We invented the microchip as a consequence of the fact that the military, NASA, demanded enormous amounts of computer power. Now, look at this curve. This curve is slowing down. I repeat, this curve, the curve that generated so much wealth and progress, this curve which makes this conference possible, is slowing down. We physicists know that. Two things are interfering with Moore's Law: heat generation and leakage. Quantum effects at the transistor, at the molecular level. What will replace silicon? We don't know. When Silicon Valley becomes a rust belt, we physicists are working on things like molecular computers, quantum computers, photonic computers. It's not clear which force will eventually win. But as you know, just like the transistor changed everything, the post-silicon era will also change everything. And as I mentioned, the Apollo space program made possible the development of the microchip. Now we're going back to the moon after a 50-year gap. Billionaires are financing a new
array of rockets, moon rockets, fully capable of putting astronauts on the moon. And some people think that a new generation of computers will arise, quantum computers, molecular computers, because of that fact. We should also point out that at the height of the space race with the Soviet Union, the NASA budget was 5% of the federal budget of the USA. Let me repeat that again. At the height of the space race, back in 1966, NASA's budget gobbled up 5% of the entire U.S. federal budget. 5% of the entire taxes paid by the American people went to put our astronauts on the moon. Obviously, that was unsustainable, and that's why it collapsed. And it collapsed for 50 years because of the enormous cost of the space program. Now, costs are dropping like a rock. And who are the people pushing this? Billionaires. Billionaires that we did not see back in the 1960s are making this possible. This is the SLS booster rocket. We are going back to the moon, starting either the end of this year or perhaps more than likely next year. In 2020, NASA is going to send the SLS booster rocket around the moon. And for investors, the most important fact is that costs are dropping. We have new people entering the game. For example, Elon Musk of SpaceX and Tesla Motors. He has the Falcon Heavy rocket shown here. It is fully capable of putting astronauts on the moon. Think about this. A private individual, because of the falling price of space travel, has enough funds to finance his own moon program. This was unheard of back in the 1960s. In fact, as you know, last year, Elon Musk put a Tesla Motors sports car on top of his moon rocket, and instead of sending it to the moon, he sent it into an orbit near the planet Mars. So we're entering a new era, a second golden age of space exploration, where not brave astronauts, but Silicon Valley billionaires are footing the bill. And then, of course, if you were to interview these billionaires and ask them, what's the return? The return, as Google billionaires now realize, could be the asteroid belt. One asteroid shown here, brought back to the planet Earth, would reap billions of dollars in platinum-based chemicals and also rare earth elements. And so we're talking about the potential of a new gold rush, a gold rush in outer space. And who is funding it? Silicon Valley billionaires are once again paving the way. They smell riches in outer space. So now let's talk about artificial intelligence and what is next for the computer industry. As I said before, Moore's law is slowing down. We see that. Computer power is not doubling every 18 months. Why is that? Because of the quantum principle. Transistors now in a Pentium chip, the smallest layer in the Pentium chip is about 20 atoms across. 20 atoms across. By 10 to 20 years from now, it'll be 5 atoms across. At that point, the quantum principle takes over. And that's what I do for a living. I get paid to do research on quantum physics. I'm a quantum physicist. And we quantum physicists know that at that point, when a layer on a Pentium chip is 5 atoms across, leakage takes place. You don't know where the electron is anymore. The Heisenberg uncertainty principle takes over. And that's why at the atomic level, if silicon becomes unstable, then why not build atomic computers? And that's the name of the game. I was in Russia a few months ago, speaking in Moscow. I had a chance to meet with Medvedev. And speaking in Russia, they were very curious about quantum computers. Now, let me be honest. To compute on individual atoms is an extremely difficult procedure. So far, we do have quantum computers, but they're very crude. But whichever nation creates the first workable quantum computers on an industrial scale, they will have the next Silicon Valley. I repeat, the next Silicon Valley will go to that country, that company that harnesses the power of the atom. And, as I said before, the problem is something called decoherence. When atoms vibrate in unison, that's the domain of quantum computers. But the slightest disturbance, somebody sneezing a mile away, the slightest little vibration of an airplane going overhead can disturb the coherence of atoms vibrating in unison, and everything falls apart. Now, one thing that we can do today, not tomorrow, is quantum cryptography. People ask the question, why is the internet so full of viruses and pirates, criminals? Why is the internet full of these people? Well, part of it is our fault. We scientists who built the internet built it for the Pentagon. And the Pentagon needed an internet that was free of all censorship, free of all restrictions. And so we built the internet like a highway with no signs on it. Unfortunately, criminals could come in and put other signs on and misread signs, mislead people. And of course, the reason for that is that's how we built the internet. We were told to build the internet without restrictions because in a nuclear war, we physicists did not have to deal with censorship to rebuild Washington, to rebuild New York, to rebuild Los Angeles after World War III. That was our mission. However, now we realize that with so many viruses, so many pirates on the internet, we need quantum cryptography. We can now build an alternate internet that is so powerful that, according to the laws of quantum physics, nobody can tamper with it. These are unbreakable. They're based on laser beams. Laser beams which carry your internet, and it is unbreakable by the laws of quantum physics. Of course, in the future, I personally think that the CIA, big banks, big corporations will have a dual internet. They will have an internet of their own based on laser beams, which is totally unbreakable. But now let's talk about robots. I mentioned them the last time I spoke, and of course, every 18 months, computer power has doubled. And I predict that the robotics industry will be bigger than the automobile industry of today. How do I know that? Because your automobile will become a robot. You will talk to it. You'll argue with it. You'll have conversations with your car. You'll learn from it. Your car will become a robot. And so the automobile industry is going to be eaten up by the robotics industry. And then the next question is, where do humans fit into this game? Well, the jobs of the future will be those jobs that robots cannot perform. Let me repeat that again. I predict that the jobs of the future will be those jobs that robots cannot do. So then the question is, what can robots do? Robots can do many things. In Japan, they can become a cook, shown on the upper right. They can become a nurse, shown in the middle. They can play a trumpet. They can play musical instruments. But you realize that how smart are these robots? These robots are as smart as an insect. Now let me end on one final note. As I said before, we're witnessing the rise of a new economy, an economy based on intellectual capital. That is analysis, planning, innovation, leadership. That's intellectual capital. And what I'm telling you now is something very simple. You are among the winners. You represent intellectual capital. You are the winners of this new digital revolution.